Whew. Who's going to start Metagame Minute? Is that me? Am I starting it here? Yeah, this is a Metagame Minute. Thank you all for joining us. Our post-show Metagame wrap-up critique. Rhett, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I say this all the time, but one thing that I love about getting into the deep role play is that I get into this state of like hypnosis almost. And especially one-on-one, like,
yeah.
Oh my God, I'm like there. And yeah, I'm feeling weird. Like I'm feeling like, as kind of like I feel like how Zephyrus would be, just kind of going with the flow and like trying to keep my feet under me while acting like I know what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
And like trying not to seem, but like, yeah, it's. I do feel. I feel a certain way about. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's like being there with the roarer.
Mm-hmm.
Was interesting because in a way, like after I was talking with Canthor and all that, it's like this feels pretty homey.
Yeah.
It feels pretty like cozy. Like I could spend 100 years here helping Canthor figure it out.
Hell yeah!
But I kept getting this like ping in the back of my mind. It's like no wait, no. Zephyrus Arthur, he wants to escape and get back to what he was doing, and it's kind of weird because I almost feel like that's sort of like in my mind's eye. That's sort of like the curse, for lack of a better word, of that place. It's like time has no meaning, so you push the dreams of going home to the back of your mind a little bit. And
you'll get to it.
Yeah,
you'll get around to it.
It's not going to be long. Yeah. And then before you know it, you've been there as long as Canthorn might have been.
Mm-hmm.
And so, while we're playing, I kept having these pings like, no. Like, it's cozy, it's homey. You got this friend with this creature now, and like, yeah, you could do that. No. You got to get home.
Mm-hmm.
And then hearing Wolf's voice calling me back, that was perfect.
And I think that's it's neat. You know why Wolf's voice is in there,
yeah,
and no one else is. And
that's kind of a hard thing too, is finding the balance of like meta play, role play, like.
Because yeah, if the audience, if you don't know, we're recording this one after we recorded the next 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Kind of the finale, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and so that was what happened in that led to tonight's episode.
Yeah.
Which has been very, very fun. Kind of going back and sprinkling in the things that are going to happen that you all get to see when we start next Monday. When everyone wakes up from their dreams. But this is the big question I have for you is how do you feel about Adrian being the copper dragon that you met in the beginning?
Well, that's sort of the thing. Like, does Zephyrus learn that quite yet? Like
I would say that this meeting, that door opening introduction,
and him saying that he gave
the
dragon the ownership. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, okay, he puts it together for sure. Because I think I think Zephyrus would have seen Adrian, and he's like, I'm the new owner, or whatever, how he talks.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like clicks into place. Like, oh, what? Like, no wonder we got along so well in a way, because he was here. He had that spear in him. We helped pull it out. And, that's the thing, I think it pretty well established. That's why I really wanted to be nice to the creep when he was walking around and stuff, is like, Zephyrus doesn't want to hurt people, really,
Sure,
it's like,
yeah.
I think that living under the burden of his family's bargain and things like that, like, people looked, we talked about it before, it's, Genasi are not necessarily rare, I guess, as how you put it, or not uncommon, maybe.
Sure, yeah. There's a lot of different, odd races out there,
right?
And Genasi are,
but like
common enough.
Gaston's more like human, right?
Gaston's human. The Magnus family is all human.
Yeah,
and you are kind of this aberration.
Yeah, Zephyrus's parents are human.
Because of this deal that your, I think, grandparents or something had made.
Right. And so there's like a little bit of like bullying that he kind of lived with, and he never wanted to like really. Zephyrus can sort of be underhanded. He can be sneaky and and conniving and stuff like that. But you're hurting creatures. That's why he liked Strix and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so the dragon, I think that Zephyrus is excited. Whether or not he's put together, I think I tried to play it when we met Eben the first time, that our relationship was tenuous. It was maybe not the best. I think we had like
transactional.
Yeah, we had a solid transactional economic workplace relationship. I was willing and ready to go out and cut off some hands for him, which we never got to.
He's definitely your manager.
Yeah. And so I don't know if Zephyrus has come to think like, oh, wait a minute, these guys are playing a game for my soul. Is this my ticket? Like, is this my ticket out from Eben?
Yeah.
Like whether or not the Roarer still ultimately holds, dominion over the whole thing or not, it means nothing to Zephyrus, I think.
And in essence, that is what the game is for. Does the Grey Roarer control your soul, or is it Adrian, this copper dragon, that controls your soul?
That's different. For some reason in my mind, when we were doing this at the finale, I was thinking like they were both working for the Roarer, just with their own means or something, like
it seems as if Adrian has taken a liking to this young group of people that
even better,
pulled a spear out of him.
Even better, because
and he was very angry with Eben.
Even better, because Eben made Zephyrus do mean things to people, made him hurt people, all these types of things, and the Roarer was enigmatic and scary and just filled as nightmares, so it's like any chance. So I don't know if Zephyrus has put that out there, but thinking about Adrian being the dragon, it's like he's excited that his natural generosity and sort of bombacity is leading him to some good fortune here, potentially, like karma coming back around.
Sure, yeah. I don't have the same questions that I've been asking for everybody else. Well, I mean, the first question. Well, no, I've got one that does work. The first question is, with this season, is there something that you thought we would have discovered about your character or gotten to about Zephyrus or Arthur by this point?
One thing that we never talked about that I was really excited about in my backstory, I think we talked about it briefly in a metagame minute, but I was pretty clear from the beginning when I was emailing with you and all this sort of stuff. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe it's just my headcanon. I'm worried now. But Arthur has a twin sister. They were born on the same day, same time. We didn't talk about this.
I remember hearing kind of something in a metagame minute.
I love it. Yeah, but obviously, like, Arthur's path took him down a different place. I imagine that she's back home or doing
and she's human.
Yeah, she is human.
Okay.
And that's the thing. It's like,
yeah, that does ring a bell.
And she's and in my
this
mind's,
is why I ask. Yeah,
and in my mind's eye, she's the only person that doesn't want anything from him, because we came from a family of means. She's the only one that never teased them or made fun of him or treated him different, and she's the older sister by seconds or whatever.
I was about to say a twin sister, right?
Yeah. So she's, but it's one of those things, the twins do. It's like
I love
she's older,
that where they were having the kids. The first one comes out. Oh, thank goodness, it's not the curse.
And that's exactly what I was thinking. Was like, all of a sudden out comes this blue skinned baby, and the payment for their deal comes due. And so that was kind of the burden that I wanted to put on Arthur when I was thinking about that. And so his sister, Amina, is what I've named her in my mind. He learned, like, she was the one that could bat her eyelashes and get everything that she wanted, and Arthur copied that. But to a lot of people, didn't mean anything because he's blue-skinned or whatever it might be. He looked different than the other Magnuses, and so wasn't quite as effective. He had to really amp up the charm and things like that. And
makes sense why he tries harder.
Right, exactly.
Where it would come naturally for Amina,
right?
But with Zephyrus, it's always just like 2 or 3 steps forward.
Yeah, if you guys can't hear Bentley, he's saying it explains why Zephyrus tries harder. It explains why Zephyrus is always on, and that's exactly kind of what I was going for. Is this guy who talks too much, and for a lot of people it's disarming. This guy is like laying it out all on the table, like we can trust him, and that's the goal. The goal is that he talks his way in and out of the bank vault, that type of thing. He's not as quick-tongued as a rogue. But
my next question then, everyone else I was asking kind of how they felt about Zephyrus's death, and where they were with it, which was it was neat to kind of hear every character's perspective on it. The main theme, I think, was just, we feel odd. The timing of it. What are we supposed to do? We're not sure. Just the unease, but knowing that is one of the goals, is to make sure that we get Zephyrus back. But my question for you is, after this event that's happened, after you died and you went to this place, and you don't know how long you spent there, like as you try to remember it, it's days and weeks. How does Zephyrus Arthur come out on the other side?
Again, I think he's feeling a little disoriented in ways, because in my mind's eye when we're playing, it did feel like immeasurable. It reminded me a lot of, talking about Picard, the episode of TNG, The Inner Light, if you remember that episode where...
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Which is, it was one of the best. Reminded me a lot of that, where it's like, I didn't necessarily wake up into another life, but in a way he did, because I've been thinking a lot since Zephyrus died, like, how would going to another realm impact him and things like that, and seeing that he looks different, seeing that he's in a different place, all these types of things, it's like, it was really hard for me when we were playing. You could maybe see the wheels turning. It's like, is he Zephyrus still? Can he drop that moniker? Because the name Zephyrus was to hide his identity so that people couldn't hurt him while he was doing Eben's dirty work.
Sure.
It was, he didn't want people to be like, oh, the Magnuses are horrible, because he didn't want anything to reflect poorly on his family or things like that, so could he drop it or not? So, like, in a way, like, he kind of woke up as Arthur in a weird way.
Yeah, no,
not having to hide
really
himself. Yeah, so I don't know. So I think that there's that aspect, and I don't know. I think he's really sensing that there's a lot more kind of at stake with this bargain that his family made than he ever knew. He never really analyzed it that much, because there was no getting out of it. There was no really used to second guessing it. Maybe that was wrong, because there was a guy there that was second guessing it the whole time, and that was finding a way, and that was kind of inspiring. Not necessarily Arthur's way, but like, maybe there is another way. And of course, he's kind of held in limbo. He's being punished a little bit. But is that punishment as bad as anything that, like, Eben put him through, or that he's been through in the name of the Grey Roar before? Like, probably not. We didn't really talk about it all that much.
I like the differences between Zephyrus and Canthorn in this, where Canthorn had the same thing, took the deal, but got what he wanted out of it, and felt like to continue on, he couldn't be doing what he wanted. He had to have his own free will again.
Right. And that was one question
where Zephyrus is like, views that differently.
Right.
There's two sides of a coin.
We kind of had that talk when we were playing, and it's like, I don't think I ever thought about it. I don't think Zephyrus or Arthur ever thought about it before. It's like, did he pledge allegiance to the Roar? No, it was pledged for him. He's never really second guessed, and I think in the back of his mind, he wanted out. He wanted to be his own man. But in a way, he was. He was getting a big house. He was making new friends. He was going on adventures. None of that was, he thought, because of Eben or the Roar. Turns out, maybe it could have been. Who knows? Like,
that's kind of what the Grey Roar is all about.
Right.
Is moving things ever so slightly so that they push the storm's goal.
And I kind of like the idea of him being or it being a giant storm, and it really evokes, the way that you've described it before really evokes like the butterfly effect,
very much so,
flap of a butterfly's wings on one side of the world creates hurricanes on the other. That's always what I've thought about.
That's the basis of this thing, is that whole sentiment, is that these tiny changes, that become bigger changes, and it's if that fact could be knowable. If you could know that this butterfly, if it did this, and then it would cause, a chain reaction, that's what the gray roller is it knows all of that.
Right.
It doesn't have a divine premonition. It can just see what's going on and knows what's going to happen.
I don't want to derail the conversation that much, but have you ever read The Kingkiller Chronicles by Pat Rothfuss?
No,
It's my favorite book series. It's supposed to be a trilogy. There's 2 books out right now. The first one's called Name of the Wind. The second one's called The Wise Man's Fear. And in the second book, he travels to the Fey realm. Spoiler alert for those of you reading The Kingkiller Chronicles. He travels to the Fey realm, and he encounters a being that lives in this tree. And the Fey protect this tree like no other. They will shoot you with a longbow from a mile away. They will salt and burn the earth around your corpse. They'll shoot any crow that touches you, because in this tree lives a being that is that way. It can sense every thread of time, every outcome, every potential. And just having a conversation with you, it impacts the threads that are coming into play and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so this character,
I like that idea.
The character goes and talks to it. And he doesn't know. He wasn't shot by a bow. He wasn't and he left. and when he's telling the story, the whole thing's a framed narrative, and people are like, "What? You did not. You made this up. No, I'm not believing you. You made it up. You made it up." They don't want to believe that he actually spoke to this being. He didn't realize that it was a big deal. But anyway,
this has been the last one-on-one session. We get back to regular episodes next Monday. So this has been
anything from tonight that you didn't see coming, something that maybe.
Oh, the whole thing. Yeah, I didn't know what the area I'd wake up looked like. I didn't know anything. The fact that everything was a surprise, which was fun. It took me there. That was part of the hypnosis that I was talking about. It's like
your accent got better as the night went on.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's been a while out of practice.
Yeah,
you guys heard Strummer pop in once too, I think.
I heard that little.
But everything was a surprise.
I want to hear from listeners how unbearable the Gaston Zephyrus scenes were.
That was fun. I was really hoping it would go on longer. I loved it when you were just like, "Well, you are Magnus." I was like, "Oh, you bitch,"
because that was something that was very, very Magnus centric. I forget what it was that you did.
Oh, I was talking about how
just fucking going around in a circle.
Oh yeah,
how he was a projection of my brain, and I was projecting how he thought. Yeah, brain in a vat theory type
soliloquism kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's like, your perspective is the one that's right.
Yeah,
and you should you should try and be you'd be skeptical of everything else.
Yeah. And that was a little bit of Rhett coming through too, though. I'm always questioning it. But everything, and especially leaving that plane the way that we did was kind of a surprise. Like, I felt really guilty about leaving Canthorn behind.
Oh, yeah.
I lost my dagger, but I've never used it this whole time anyway, so that's kind of a bummer. But yeah, that whole thing, being there surrounded by the roar, that was... And then coming back as easily and being kind of in the middle of this projection with Gaston, I wasn't prepared to come back that way.
Yeah, I wanted that to be a little jarring.
Yeah, that was. So, kudos. Thank you so much for...
And the last question I have is...
Bentley has a question?
What was the most jarring thing for you doing this solo session with Alex?
I think the most... So Bentley asked, what's the most jarring thing? Yeah.
Besides playing the character again after so long.
Okay, well, that's what I was going to say, but also just sort of coming into it and realizing that I had nobody to bounce. You started it the perfect way. I was alone.
Yeah, that's how I wanted to start that.
Because I think, Zephyrus is used to taking the lead, but he's kind of used to, like, putting it out there. And the idea is, like, he's just putting it out there to see what other people think. All right, y'all, we're going to go ahead and do this. And off we go. Yeah, exactly.
If you hadn't met anyone, that's what it would devolve into.
Right, So I'm also kind of glad that I met this little creature and was able to sort of... God, it also felt so fitting to Zephyrus to make friends with, like... there's that saying, like, you can make friends with a stone if you wanted to. That's almost what it felt like. It was like, finally.
Oh, yeah, this is a homebrew character that lives in this place, just called a creep. That's their name. They're creeps.
I like it. Yeah. I imagine like a little crab with like a fleshy, like, like he said he had more like tendrils and stuff, but
Yeah, it's long, gangly arms, 2 claws on each end, these little tiny legs, and then it is just it's got this bag that it keeps everything in, and it's just strapped onto it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And was it like the bag really felt like a bag of holding to me, in a way? Like I was going to be
I think it's the opposite of a bag of holding. Like you put something in there and it actually gets bigger than
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I like that. But not so big that he couldn't hold it or something like that.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. That's fine.
Everything in that dimension's a bit lighter than it should be.
I thought about just ransacking his room of stuff, but again,
wouldn't have got much.
Right. Zephyrus comes from I had the debate with the creep itself. Like, I don't need things that come from means. But yeah, that was the most jarring thing, was coming up alone, no friends, having to then figure out. Okay, I investigate. Okay, I draw an arrow so that if anybody comes after me, it was really hard to figure out what to do without bouncing ideas off the team, and so that was challenging.
Did you learn anything about your character that you didn't know before, within this thing, within this scenario that he gave you? I mean, I know you guys talked about it and stuff.
I think that I really kind of learned. Well, obviously, I have some new abilities and new things like that. I'm a new race of Genasi, if it wasn't very clear.
You're a shadow of Genasi.
Yeah, I guess so. But one thing that really kind of came out when we were playing was just how jovial, I think, in the face of the abyss Zephyrus might actually be. Obviously, I think a lot of it is show. A lot of it's kind of what they teach in wilderness school. It's well, you got to keep your spirits up. And I think I was thinking about that a lot. It's well, what would I do? Yeah, that kind of fits Zephyrus if we do it like this. And it's kind of talking to yourself. Hello, talking to yourself. Thinking if anybody's out there, talking to the things that can't really talk back all that well. I don't know. I think that. And then everything else felt very truly Zephyrus. And even that felt truly Zephyrus, but it's something I hadn't really thought about because he's not been alone.
He has
not
Willem. A scene that you've been in before.
And when he's traveling before, he had Willem, and he had all these things. He could always bounce ideas off these people and stuff. This is probably the first time he's been alone in a long
that's very interesting.
time. Because he's had his sister, or he's had Willem. I guess he kind of went off on his own before coming and adventuring and taking the deed from his parents and things like that. He might have been on his own. I don't know. Those details aren't necessarily super clear in the backstory of Zephyrus. But
from what I'm remembering, there may be a few places that you may have been, but I think Willem was with you most of the time after you left home.
Yeah. And so. And that's another thing. It's just alone for the first time in a long time. So it was fun. I was really glad to get to sit back into the chair as Zephyrus and talk about him and all these types of things.
It was fun. I've been looking forward to this one-on-one for a while.
And I really appreciate you putting it together and finding time to come and sit down with me and put a ribbon on this whole thing. So.
That's right. Yeah, this is the ribbon for season 4. Thank you guys. Thank you guys again for joining us here at Metagame Minute. Like I said, back to regular episodes next week. Get back to the Chateau de Magnus. We will see you then. Grab your swords, keep on adventuring.